Well, hi everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things from the world of football that we thought were interesting. I'm Tom Rennie, alongside me is MLS legend and top broadcaster across the US and A. It is Mr. Brian Dunny Dunseth. Hey buddy, you all right?
I'm fantastic, Rennie. I just got this text message, by the way. It's an alert. Slaven Bilic is now the new manager at West Ham. No, I'm just kidding. Not yet. Sorry, I was probably looking down the pipeline 48 hours from now. I apologize.
I am led to believe that it is going to be Nuno in charge of West Ham, or at least they've convinced him to a point to come. But, I mean, let's start with this, because this is just incredible to me that Graham Potter, like, away from the West Ham of it, Dunny, right? You've had a long career in football. I can't think of any other club, really, proper club, that acts in this way. So Graham Potter, it would seem, quite rightly, is going to go because he is statistically the worst manager, points per game, in the history of West Ham. He just can't do it. He hasn't got it. He's not good enough. He can't coach defence, can't coach attack, is chippy and horrid to everybody, abandoned all his principles almost immediately. This job is too big for him. He's a youth team manager and it's too big for him, right? So fine. So they've clearly made that decision, and yet they haven't fired him. They're going to let him take maybe Monday against Everton while they try and convince Nuno. And if they can't get Nuno, and this is public, so I'm gonna bring you this from our friend Jacob Steinberg over at The Guardian. He says Slaven Bilic is the other option. Slaven Bilic was West Ham manager in 2016 to 2018, 2.5 seasons, did fine, but it was over. And since then, he's been a failure everywhere he's gone. What Bilic wants to do, apparently, is bring Mark Noble, who is the sporting director, so he's not going to do this, and James Collins, who was a great defender 10 years ago for West Ham, bring them in and just sort of vibe it out for the next 33 games.
It's a bold strategy. Yeah,
in an era where you're competing with Andoni Iraola and Oliver Glasner and clever,
and Ruben Amorim.
And, well, to be fair, I'd still rather have Bilic than Amorim. That's how other thing. Like, is this, what's happening here? When a manager is sort of gone, it's weird to have this bizarre, like, oh, I'm interviewing for your job whilst you're in a job. Why isn't Potter resigning?
Well, he's not going to resign because it's the money left on the table. But the reality is that there's, he's contractually obligated to continue to stick it as the manager, stick it through until he's relieved of his duties. So we wait and we see. And in the meantime, every single weekend, I get to send you fun little WhatsApps and just tease you relentlessly. And I thoroughly am enjoying this, specific to how poor Manchester United's season has started.
Yeah, so it's not something I was going to talk about on today's show, frankly, but Danny started me off, and I'm just texting people about it constantly now. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Potter is actually, in future, when sneaky little football fans come to you, Danny, and they're like, he's a really cerebral manager. Not just about Potter, but anybody. Like, he's a really cerebral manager. He needs time to build. And if you give someone time to build, they're going to be good. Make them define what that time is. Because if it's 9 months where you can, like, have sex and have a baby, as we discussed previously on this program, that's Hakuna Matata. That's the circle of life. Like, you need to show something. The game at the weekend was pitiful. The season has been pitiful. His previous, last season was pitiful. What is the time frame? When can we start being like, actually, that is probably enough time to show something?
Well, here's the interesting conversation, because I'm about, 10 and a half months in with Ruben Amorim, and I see something, but there's no tangible physical evidence that matches up with seeing. Yeah, they look more fun. They look more dynamic. They look like they understand the system. And yet, if not for a red card 5 minutes in, are we having the feel-good conversation of 3 points in the back pocket and we move on? It's weird, man. We do this thing now where I think the manager is bigger than the job. The job itself is the full 3 points every single time they step on the field. And then the nuanced conversation of, that's my team, that's my football, it's Arsenal football, mate, that's what we play. Or, it's pretty good, I feel good about it. You sold that to me, I bought it, and I took it and made it my own. Or do you want to be gritty and fun to watch, like the 17-game unbeaten streak by Glasner and Crystal Palace? So At the end of the day, I don't know in the modern game what's the right way to verbalize it, but the reality is that we just want to be proud, right? As football fans, we want to be
Yeah.
proud of the way that we're playing. We want to see, and this is pressure, and it's more of a psychological thing. But I think we always want to watch our football team, and we want to see like whatever that crest is, that we would live and die and give
Yeah.
everything for that badge. And that means from the opening whistle, you want to see combativeness, and by the final whistle, you want to see combativeness. You want to see elements of control. You want to be visually pleasing. You want to see something, technically so proficient that other teams don't have that. So in that weird conversation somewhere in there lies our hopes, dreams, desires, despair, and disappointment.
I am getting a little bit annoyed by the sheer amount of people that are just calling that West Ham a zombie club. Uh, that's getting to me. That is getting to me. I am getting a bit annoyed by that. Like I saw something on Five Live earlier about like they're a bit like how Newcastle were under Mike Ashley,
Mm,
and I don't, and it was from someone from Newcastle, so I can see why they made the comparison, and I get it to a degree. But I actually think that in that scenario, Mike Ashley, oh Tim's here, good. Mike Ashley didn't give a sorry, Tim, right? That was the biggest problem there. He just didn't care anymore.
mm.
I don't think that's the case with Sullivan, who's at West Ham. I think it's a competence question. And it's a sort of broader question here, Danny, in terms of like how a club is set up. You just cannot have like in the 90s, right? When you were at Rangers and you were in British football and it was like it was still very 80s, very 70s, where one sort of rich guy,
Yeah.
maybe still someone who ran a local business, who ran the club, or we were just starting doing like investment firms, started to run clubs and things like that. But it was still very much like the personal fiefdom of some old geezer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's what football was. And there's a great documentary, and I forget what it was called. It had Peter Reid and Sunderland, and it was Barry Fry at Peterborough. I'll look it up for people what it was called. But it was like it showed what football was like in the 90s. And it was like, right, I need to get your centre half, right? And I've got to get him to my club. So how about I give you 4 grand, bag of balls, and we can have a pre-season friendly here and you'll get all the money. And that was what football was like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's sort of changed in a multitude of ways. English football is now so international, and the Premier League is not just an English league anymore. There's barely any English owners. And David Sullivan seems to still want to run it like Barry Fry in 1987. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way anymore. And he tried to hire a director of football who made these terrible signings, and they're lumbered with them. But that doesn't mean you abandon it and go back to like the old ways. And I just wonder whether, like, what's the best structure, I guess, is my question
Mm.
to you for a football club. And I guess it's also different from America to Spain
Yeah.
to England as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a fascinating question. I've never really thought about it from that perspective. Going from kind of the individual owner, the one that's very hands-on, the one that wants to know where his money's going, the one that wants to be a part of the negotiations, versus now this duality of are you state funded and backed, or
Mm.
are you this investment firm or this conglomerate that's been put together to run some of these clubs? And then is it individual club or is it this umbrella effect? I mean, it's weird, right? We look at PSG and we look at Man City and we thought, well, that's what Newcastle United's going to become. We look at what Boli and Igbali and Blueco have done, and we've seen success and failure of previous iterations from different countries, from China, from the Middle East or South America or here in the United States. And I don't know. It really is a really, really interesting conversation to be had. And even then, the financial conversation, I'll use Manchester United again. When you think about the way that the takeover happened near the end of Sir Alex Ferguson and David and everything that was happening, and then the transition to now Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, and how do you take dividends and how do you return investment? Look at what the turnout's been recently for Liverpool, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, single-handedly, they changed the course of the market with up to $400 million spent in a summer transfer window. So much so that in the derby against Everton, 260 million pound worth of players sitting on the bench. And that's just in two players, in Florian Wirtz
Yeah.
and Alexander Isak. So yeah, it's a really fascinating question, but I guess that's a part of maybe, man, I wish we could go back and just kind of project what the future would have looked like in the mid 90s.
Mm.
But to see the global influence in the game in the Premier League, there's been massive success and Obviously, some horrific storylines of clubs just dissipating and disappearing
Yeah.
overnight. But I don't think we ever saw the stratospheric success of the Premier League if we would have ever tried to look back. And maybe that's something what we're looking for in a very miniature scale in Major League Soccer out here in the United States from, 1997, 1996 to, right now, 2025.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm quite worried right now. I'm worried. I've got to say, I'm worried about. I'm weirdly, I haven't been that much of a prophet of doom, in terms of the ownership and running of the club. But I just think I saw some of the protests at the weekend, and I think people have just had enough of being
Mm.
run in this way. And you can't just get rid of the owner in the way you can as a manager, which is why all of a sudden you can see now how much like David Moyes took all the grief that Sullivan should have been getting for his utter mismanagement of the club, and I don't know. I
Managed it.
I think that now it becomes all you have to manage up a club like that, and anyway, Graham Potter simply can't do it. But if it's Slaven Bilic, I don't know. I think that's self-sabotage. Anyway, we'll see how that develops. People are texting me right now, literally just WTF repeatedly. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
just got a text from Eric Winaldo right now, so we're all matched.
Tune in. Listen, I
WTF.
want to talk about kind of other things today. I've got a few other stories. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Arsenal Man City game in a few ways. But firstly, in the macro of it, so it's still September, it's week 5, and I always say to people, despite the doom and gloom of my own personal support of my club, you shouldn't look at the table until you're 10 games in. Like right now, Villa are in the bottom 3 or maybe fourth bottom or something. They're not going to finish there. I'd still feel reasonably confident, even with Slaven, that West Ham might make it up this season. One or two other teams are too high. Crystal Palace aren't going to finish 4th, right? Things like that. So don't go mad about the table as yet. However, I do think a game like Arsenal-Man City has quite dramatic consequence to the season. And it goes to a conversation, Dunny. You and I spoke after the Etihad game last season or season before, where Arsenal was celebrating the point, and it was the Trossard red card. I think it was the start of last season,
Yeah,
this sort of
yeah.
time. And we were a bit like, well, you didn't win the game. And we didn't think Man City would win or lose more than 5. Liverpool ain't going to lose 5 games, mate. They ain't going to lose
Yeah.
5 games this season. So
It's gonna be tough. Yeah.
it's going to be super, super tough. They're already 5-5. Not winning that game, like I heard some people's opinion I really respect, who are Arsenal people, talking about that like it was a good result. And I suppose in the micro of the game it is. In the macro of the
Mm.
season, it's a bad result, isn't it? Not being able to beat Man City at home.
Yeah. Listen, I think it is in these are the type of results that even though points are split, someone feels better about it, someone feels worse about it. Um, I think there has to be a realistic conversation somewhere surrounding the decision to start Trossard, the feeling that it was more defensive than it needed to be, the effectiveness of Martinelli and Trossard at Atletico Bilbao versus giving him the start, halftime losing Madueke. For Eze, is he better playing as central, like as a hybrid of a 10 with no Odegaard right now and the return of Bukayo Saka, but having to be smart about his minutes? I wish there was a way to have more of a transparent, open understanding of like the pieces of the chess table that had to be moved around, to know that Mikel Arteta was going up against City at home. Now, listen, that second half, I thought they were really dominant. I thought they completely pinned City back. If it weren't for that early touch and little chop and little cut ball from Erling Haaland that starts the transition moment that leads to the goal, it's a piece of brilliance. It's a piece of artistry. Excuse me. But the reality is that this has been see. I'm trying to figure this out because Arsenal's start of the season has been excruciatingly painful from who they've had to play so early. I mean, it really has.
Yeah.
If you think
Tough
about it, like
games.
it's horrible. Like
Yeah.
it's the worst. It's I guess in a way it it lays bare where you're really at this stage of the year. But man, this is really really tough because I think they've actually played pretty well.
Hmm.
I actually think they're one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the Premier League, hands down. Now, the start to your point about Liverpool, I mean that's just incredible, and the chances of them dropping 4 to 5 matches are going to be, unless they have a couple bad weeks. The depth of this roster is so much stronger than it was last year.
Yeah.
But for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, there's a couple things at play. You've got Zubamendi, Madueke, you've got Eze, you've got Gyökeres. I mean, four players that are theoretically starters in your starting 11, so you strengthen. You've got to figure out how to keep Odegaard as healthy as possible. Marino's a plug and play type of player. You got to get Saka back ASAP. And then with Trossard and Martinelli, you got two impact players off the bench. So I still think there's going to be moments in which we've got to figure out as fans, as pundits, as media members, how we talk about Gyökeres edition, how we talk about Madueke, how we talk about Saka, how we talk about Odegaard, how we talk about Eze in particular. And then in that midfield, for as much as they've moved on from Thomas Partey and various levels of a weird conversation over there, bringing in Zubamende, how does that either make them better structurally, but maybe lose some of the athleticism in the player profile that would benefit Declan Rice? I think the back line's really impressive. He looks like he's settled in on Calafiori on that left-hand side and Timber on the right-hand side. You've got three monsters as center backs that can deal with virtually any type of scheduling issue or physicality issue that they're going to probably face at some time, because you got to keep Saliba as healthy and as fit as possible over the course of the year. And Raya is one of the most competent goalkeepers in the league. So I think and again, who knows, because we can't do this in real time, but in any other world that Liverpool and Man City don't exist, Arsenal probably has multiple Premier League titles.
Yeah.
But again, as I say that, it's still about winning trophies. It's still about pressure. And maybe theoretically going one more round deeper in the Champions League and still being in second place, is that worthy of spending $250 to $300 million in a summer transfer window? I don't know. Or is that just to try to maintain staying within touching distance?
Well,
because right now, the couple teams that needed to strengthen have strengthened, and those teams that maybe didn't have to strengthen have strengthened as well.
I mean, it's incredibly harsh, right? And I think it is fair to say that Arsenal they're having a bit of bad luck with injuries again. Like Madueke's out now for a few weeks on the same week that Saka came back and played second half at the weekend.
At least it wasn't an ACL. It sounds like they said it wasn't an ACL.
This is good news, but they reckon like a few weeks at least, right? So Madueke looks great against Forest, and then suddenly, he's out for a few weeks. That's some bad luck. So look, they are having some bad moments. Saliba's out, Mascara's done okay, and this sort of stuff. But I just think already at this stage of the season, they're two big rivals, and it is unlucky. You're absolutely right. It's super unlucky to face these two teams so early, but didn't pass either test. And I just keep thinking about that Ric Flair thing, right? It always comes to me, but this title race is just ludicrously difficult, and the standards are so high. I want to do a bit more on Liverpool in a second, but I'm getting the sense right now this could be a blowout season because they look just so good. The depth is so good.
Yeah,
but go on.
I was just going to say really quick though. I think it is important as we're talking about Arsenal losing ground that they've given up just one goal in the run of play.
Yeah,
I mean just one, and that's the Erling Haaland goal. The Bombasso that Szoboszlai hit from distance was a free kick, and outside of that, everything else, like they're not as bad as I think the narrative is trying to create.
No, I think they're tremendous, Dunny. They're absolutely tremendous, and the squad is great. The team is great. I think the manager is
Arteta?
Great.
Is it Arteta? Is the narrative I wonder about this now because
gotta win that big game, mate. Gotta win that big game.
But we also see this with Big Ange, and it's already started at Forest because he hasn't won in his first 3 games, and he got knocked out of the cup competition. It's there with Ruben Amorim. So far, Arne Slot for the most part has been untouchable, but that's because they're winning. And Pep, Pep is Pep. But I just wonder if it's the way that Mikel Arteta handles himself, if that's a weird application of pressure because he's so robotic, and some days he's maybe into giving you information, but 99% of the time he's not into giving any information. And I just wonder if that makes him a target, that the personalities of these managers creates its own semblance of pressure on the team to succeed. And if they're not succeeding, then, they're free hits. Because all I've heard this season is that Mikel Arteta has to win something this year. It's the
spend, though, isn't it? It's the sheer amount of money they spend and the sheer amount of years they've been trying to win it. If this is his first year or second year, I don't think that's much of a narrative. It's been a long, long time he's been in charge. And to get this sort of money across all these years and have
Yeah.
your perfect team built for you. And like maybe you're right at the start of the season. Maybe they win the FA Cup and maybe they win Champions League or make the final and come
Mm.
second. And if they end with the FA Cup, then it's pats on the back all round and we go again. But with this sort of spend,
Yeah, no, I agree.
I
Yeah.
just think you can't ignore it. You can't ignore the sheer amount of money they've spent on players, the
Yeah.
wages they have, and it's a bespoke team in a way that people keep talking about. Postecoglou comes in, and there was a great stat about Postecoglou. We probably won't have time for it today, but last season under Nottingham Forest were the team that pressed the least in the opposition final third.
Mm.
So they were the most low block, low press team. Last weekend against Burnley, Forest were the number one team for pressing in the
Mm.
opposition final third. And he's
Yeah.
trying to change that mid-flight in 2 weeks, right? So I think there's loads of mitigation why Nuno might not be a massive success in 18 months even at Forest, right? But hopefully there'll be enough,
Yeah.
unlike sort of Graham Potter, there'll be enough wins and enough sort of moments and enough green shoots, a bit like Amarim, and you're a bit like, yeah, fine. Arteta's had so long, and our conversation is constantly not about how good the squad is, not about how good a manager he is, not about how good the defense is. I think that's all there, and it's got better and better.
Yeah.
Players have
Yeah.
got better, expectation has got higher, all of it. The question keeps on being, when the big game comes around, can they win it? They've had two already, which again, you're right, massively unfair to have had them in the
Mm.
opening five. Lost against Liverpool, bad luck. Scraped to draw against Man City, played reasonably well. That these are the results that are going to cost them. All three of these teams are going to win 30 games. They can only realistically, I'd say, beat each other, and there might be a Spurs at City style
Yeah.
fluke.
Yeah.
So they've got to beat each other, and they
Yeah.
just,
No, I hear.
you
I
know.
hear.
And what about Gyökeres? He's meant to be the difference maker, and he sort of once again big game wasn't really there.
Well, so my conversation with Gyökeres is that he's still going to get you 20 goals in a season in all competitions. And my theory is that those little slip ups that aren't the top 5 competition games that you've had in the season, do his goals make losses into draws, draws into wins? I think it's also, and again, I'm not an Arsenal guy. I'm not a Gyökeres guy. I wouldn't have. I would have loved him at United, but they ended up going in a different direction for whatever reason, or he went in a different direction for whatever reason. I think that it is also important to recognize that this is a club that, in the last 3 seasons, since Gabby Jesus really declined physically, that they haven't really played with a number 9. And so they've kind of like they've freestyled this number 9 or false 9 position with 3, 4, 5 different players. And now that they do have a 9, it's him understanding their movements, it's them understanding his movements, and it's also, hey man, you're a penalty area to penalty area guy, like the width of the penalty area. Don't stray out. That's, we also don't know that, right? We haven't seen Mikel Arteta kind of walk us through tactically of like the non-negotiables for where he wants his 9 to operate. So I think they're getting used to each other. I think, I'm not trying to be an apologist because it's an incredible amount of money, comes with a huge goal scoring pedigree. But I think we're seeing these little glimpses of what he's capable of doing, knowing what he has done, and now just waiting for it week in, week out. But I also, listen, we've been spoiled, right? Let's go down. You talk about Benzema, you talk about Harry Kane, you talk about Lewandowski, now you talk about Erling Haaland, you talk about guys like Kylian Mbappe. Like, we just went through the whole Darwin Nunez thing, compared and contrast Erling Haaland. I just, now we're doing it with Sesko because of Ekitike and Alexander Isak. Now we're going to do this with Gyökeres. I just hope we find like a weird kind of understanding that they're not, sorry, Tim, they're just maybe not as prolific or not in the same type of finishing, final third tactics that maybe one of the other clubs would have them prevail at.
And last bit on this, what about Man City? Like, there was a stat doing the rounds about it was their lowest ever possession average by a Guardiola team in a top flight league match. I don't know how much that means or otherwise. I'd love your view on it. But like a few weeks in the season now, the Brighton game was tough and they got turned over. The Tottenham game, they were bullied out of it by a great Spurs performance. In this one, Haaland looks fantastic, but there's clear issues. And also, like, taking Haaland off in the 75th was interesting. Like, give us a view on them after 5 weeks.
Yeah, I see. I'm of the belief that the possession statistic is one of the most bull statistics in the modern game. Sorry, Tim. I'll stop. Maybe. I think it's ridiculous. I really do, because I think possession statistics should only count in the attacking phase of play. On top of that, I thought that Man City got pinned in. I think we saw an Arsenal team that is capable of style and substance, identity, possession with purpose, making them chase. I also think Pep was trying to protect his team and understand like they were going to suffer, and they were suffering. And on top of that, I still think they're volatile and they're fragile mentally. Um, doing the FIFA Club World Cup, they'll hammer Juve, and they were hammering Al Hilal, and then 2 minutes in the second half they concede, and it's like, ah, here we go again. Sorry, Tim. Okay, I promise. But yeah, I just think it's there's still this fragility to the group that we're not used to seeing. And throwing on another center back and throwing on another center back, oh my God, should I throw on one more center back just to keep the game in front of them? And then a great ball, a great flick, a great touch, a goalkeeper's trying to, stay condensed to his back line and staying connected, and all of a sudden they end up doing it. So yeah, and by the way, side note, why do they call it XG when it's EG in real life?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Let's make that a thing between us. Let's call it EG from now on. That could be our thing. We've got Dunsethery,
Yeah.
we've got EG, we've got Sorry Tim. You're fucking content machines here. Sorry, Tim. Hashtag content, down the content mine. Sorry, Tim. Right, I want to move to something else. I want to ask you about the Man United game. Not necessarily the performance and all that, because I think it was so chaotic. It's tough to analyze, and we do that quite a lot. I want to talk about how just mentally fun that opening 45 was. And I just really loved everything about that 45, from Robert Sanchez doing that insane running out. I mean, it's a lovely flick and it's a great move, but what's he doing there? That's terrible judgment. Then I'd love your view on the substitutions. I've asked a few people this. I was with a couple of footballers at the time. I've asked a few journalists. I asked our friend Adrian Heath, so I'll ask you as well. Like, I can't remember anyone doing substitutions like that in that scenario. And even this weekend, Sunderland lost. Ronaldo got sent off. Ronaldo, and they got even more offensive and more attacking and more aggressive.
Yeah.
And then when you bundle into the conversation the injury that Cole Palmer was carrying, to take off Esteval and Pedro Neto in that moment, did
and
you
leave
get
Garnacho on the bench? No, nothing. I didn't get anything out of this game. I really didn't. I literally, we do our 3 of 3 down, and it was the last one, my last dislike of the weekend, because this is, and maybe this is just me being like the analyst and trying to like separate the fandom. I went into this game thinking about that Enzo Maresca and Chelsea absolutely walloped PSG in the FIFA Club World Cup final.
Yeah.
Because tactically, Enzo took a piece of the page of Vincent Company and Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals and just slapped on an even more aggressive system that out PSG'd PSG to the point where Luis Enrique ends up getting in fisticuffs and throwing baby punches. And by the way, did he ever get suspended? I don't even remember. Anyways, nothing consequential, like Luis Suarez in the League's Cup. God, a couple cheap shots right there. Very proud of myself. Here's my problem.
Yeah.
After 3.5 minutes, I learned nothing from that game. I'm not joking. I learned nothing from that game because I listened to fans call into the show and tell me, well, they had a great start. You just got whooped 3-0 the weekend before, had a full week while Chelsea was up getting battered in Munich and going significant minutes. Yeah, baseline, I expect you to start well. You're at home against Chelsea. And by the way, Garnacho's there warming up and already riled up the fan base for whatever. By the way, why did he shoulder bump Lenny Euro? Like,
Why
what
did
was
he
the point?
do that?
They must not like each other, which I'm fine with. Oddly, it felt like he's like the new Carlos Tevez for the Old Trafford fan base. Like it was weird, like the way they jumped after him. Anyways, so then someone's like, "Well, that's Amorim tactics." No, that's 1990s football. Bayern's pressed. You play direct. Sesko wins the header. Cucurella is dealing with Mazraoui's width. Buemo is marked by Caicedo. Enzo's in the midfield. Who was it? Fofana and Chalaba. One goes up for the ball, the other drops. Caicedo doesn't stay with the run. And so Sanchez comes flying out, and he gets caught in no man's land. The moment that happens, I would have rather Sanchez stayed in the goal. Buemo goes in 1v1, scores, back of the net. We're talking about goalkeeper antics instead of being sent off. And then it's still 11 versus 11. Because I wanted to see if this system learned anything from a week prior. I wanted to see the players that he chose in this system that he's been so adamant, so arrogant, so cocky about that this is my system. I'm not going to change. Not even the Pope. He, ha, ha. Guys, I make a joke. Okay, funny, funny. Even afterwards, guys, I make a joke. He. Great. Just please stop. Anyways,
Stop.
just please stop. For the love of God, stop. So then after that, I give them credit because they played the game within the game. I still don't understand. After Casemiro scores his goal, he's got 2 challenges in there that leads to that second red card. I would have loved to see in a moment like, hey, by the way, you got the yellow. You just scored the goal. We're going to get you a huge round of applause. Let's get you off. It's amazing people trying to justify in some way, shape, or form that wasn't a second yellow. It was absolutely a second yellow. And then the game is the game. And you can't tactically, you're figuring it out in real time. You make your changes, whatever. Fine. I get it. The substitutions by Enzo Maresca. I can understand Estevao immediately.
Yeah.
I can understand Estevao immediately. Young kid, no reason to put him in a physical battle where he's just working his tail off. What I didn't understand was why you take off Pedro Neto. If you're going to bring in Tosin, which is fine, I got no problem for Tosin, but we kind of already knew that Cole Palmer was carrying something, and he just returned from injury. So in a game like that, when you're looking at your bench and you're looking on the field, God, dude, Cole's a difference maker. He's one of the elite players in this league. But 85 minutes, we're going to run him out? Or 65 minutes, we're going to run him out? Wouldn't that be better from a selection standpoint to let Pedro Neto run his into the ground? Because that's what he's going to do anyways.
That phrase? Is that something
You know what I mean?
say?
Yeah, he's going to be breathing out his nipples for the next 90 minutes. Let him work his. I mean, is
Can we
there
say
a guy?
that? Do we have to beat running into the ground? Is that okay?
It's a male. Yeah, it's a male.
We'll find out. Okay. All right.
Sorry, Tim. Question mark.
Okay.
Anyways, then you get into it. Andres Santos comes in for Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
So now you've made the change that you didn't want to make, but you probably should have made earlier. And Andres Santos, great set of teeth, by the way. He got Bruno'd. He's got a great set of teeth.
Oh,
chompers. Yeah, he got his chompers Bruno'd. And then you bring in Gusto in the 64th minute, and you add Tyreek George. The same Tyreek George that you guys were shopping until the dying moments of the window when you got Alejandro Garnacho available, who's been electric in the previous 2 appearances. And by the way, not for nothing, if you want a motherfucker on the field, sorry, Tim, maybe my last, like the most antagonist, don't you think that, hey, man, when we win the ball, let's just dump one in the corner? Mazraoui against Harry Maguire, Mazraoui against De Ligt, or excuse me, Garnacho against Harry Maguire, Garnacho against De Ligt, Garnacho against Luke Shaw. You don't think he's going to run up their tailpipe and just be a nuisance? It made no sense to me. So the game top to bottom, I'm happy as a United fan they took 3 points, much needed 3 points. My concern is, where's my schedule? You got Brentford away, you got Sunderland home, Liverpool away, Brighton at home, away against Forest, away against Spurs. That gets you next 6 games. My concern is that this conversation about Amorim, the pressure about his formation, the can gets kicked down the road to what, end of October, early November, mid-November? And my fear is that we're in the same talking point we were last week. Because this moment is an outlier because we didn't get to see who they truly are against opponents that are the best measuring stick.
Yeah.
Not the team they're supposed to win or beat, the team that we need to see tangible steps going forward and growth. And again, I know I sound curmudgeony, but I didn't learn anything from this game from Ruben Amorim's tactics or substitution patterns.
At this point, I actually really want the Amorim thing to work because I really admire him for just when you compare it to, and I'm thinking about how bad Potter is and how like he'd spent all this time and he had this idea and he had a 5-month free hit to try things out in the Premier League under no pressure last season, a pre-season America that a lot of people listening to this would have seen physically, and he has 2 Premier League games and just abandons everything. Yeah. And if you think, like, imagine Amorim abandoned everything after all this time and went 4-4-2 or whatever against Chelsea this weekend and whatever game's coming up. That would be the end of him in the same way that it's been the end of Potter at West Ham. Because at this point, how could anyone sort of trust you
Mm.
that you've been working and working and working, and you're so like happy to abandon your principles. If I was working for someone like that, I've worked for people like that, I'd be a bit like, actually, I don't trust your judgment on anything from this point.
Mm.
And there's only sort of one way it goes from there.
Yeah.
The other bit I wanted to mention on this, only because it was so funny watching this. So I was watching the game in the green room before doing the commentary of Fulham Brentford, which was great fun, by the way. Harry Wilson's goal, so good, so good.
By the way, Jedi Robinson, do you have confirmation why he wasn't available? Tony
Still
and I
not,
couldn't figure it out.
still not fit. Still not. It's a fitness problem.
He had 2 cameos for like 23 minutes back to back, and then didn't play last weekend and wasn't anywhere to be found.
Someone told me minor setback. It's minor
Oh,
problem. So
okay.
I mean, I'm
Sessegnon's done well. Like
I didn't dive deep. I asked. That's what they said. I
Okay.
didn't ask a kind of follow up question because we were about to go on air. But I'm not expecting it to be a massive problem. But Sessegnon, yeah, played really really well. And but it's not that significant. But like on the Casemiro thing. So I'm doing the game with Hogan Ephraim. It's just tremendous fun. The former Toronto QPR West Ham winger. And the night out I had with him at the Christmas party, I fell down some stairs because he's far too hardcore for me, and I still feel pain in my elbow every day after trying to keep up with him. But anyway, he's a Man United fan. We're watching the game, and Casemiro gets booked, and I kept thinking of that movie Inside Out. You know, where they
Yeah.
have all their emotions, and it's like
Yeah.
the angry guy just jumps out, and Hogan was like, he's gonna switch and get yellow. He's gonna get a yellow. Get him off. Get him off. You got to take him
Yeah.
off. Why isn't he taking him off? Taking him off. And he
We
was
could all
doing it
see
for
it.
like
Yeah.
10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. You've got to get him off. And he kept saying to me, he's not going to take him off. He's not going to take him off. And then you just knew that little red rage character in
Yeah.
Casemiro's brain was going to drop in at any moment. And
Yeah.
it was just so funny to me.
You can see it. Everybody can see it.
was so
Everyone can see
funny.
it. And it gets worse. And it gets worse as they get older. As the listen, Casemiro was one of the most trusted midfielders in the modern game.
Yeah.
But again, when you're getting older, and by the way, a year ago, no, less than a year, more than a year ago, the FA Cup final that they lost. Remember, he didn't celebrate with the team. He went and got in the jet. He was first jet out, like he was gone, and he was seldomly used last year. Now, fit, dietary change, man looks like he's on a mission. Got right place, right time. Great header the other night. He's been pretty good, although he didn't start him against City. He went for the Ugarte instead. Like you could see it was happening, and yeah, I was sitting in my hotel room in the Minnesota airport, and I was like, "Yep, this is about to happen."
And it did, and it was super funny. Two other quick bits, Danny, before we're out of time today that I wanted to ask you. Number one was the quote from David Moyes, the Mosiah, please come back, all is forgiven, we miss you. After the Merseyside Derby. So this season, when Liverpool have not been winning, we've had 7 minutes, we've had 9 minutes. We play and play and play until Liverpool score a late goal. This Merseyside Derby, though frenetic and the boys in play a decent amount, suddenly there's just 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And people have been texting me all day, Liverpool fans, basically going like, oh, well, the ball was in play X amount and blah, blah, blah. David Moyes said, quote, if Liverpool were 2-1 down, I'm not sure if 3 minutes would have been put up. And
Yeah, he's right.
this is the point, right? I'm not saying conspiracy here. I'm not saying Mooney's made of cheese. I'm not doing that. But I am saying here that in these games, this happens quite a lot. And I just wondered, Dunny, to your experience, like, does this really happen? Which you kind of alluded to there, but also, like, why does it happen? Is this is it unconscious bias, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I think there always is. I think it's naive to suggest there's not. Now, I think maybe there's more gray area in some referees' minds than others. But I think today, when David Moyes said that, I was like, huh, yeah, no, I like, all right, we'll give him one more chance. You got to clear your lines. Like I always knew as a defender, once the board was shown, that was only suggested, right? So I always kind of in the back of my mind planned for an extra minute. So in moments like that where you're trying to hold on or you're chasing, either way, if you're holding on, height, width, and distance, get that ball as high and as wide and as far away from your goal as possible. And if you were the attacking team, ball comes to my feet, I'm hooking one in the box. I'm creating havoc. Because if they can't clear their lines, recycle, win, first ball, second ball. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, listen, Everton just trying to create a scrum at that stage. They're trying for something to pop loose, a ball to niggle out, and just jump on it. But I'll tell you what, Liverpool, man. I said today, they're not playing great, but they're great.
Mm.
And they have all the earmarkings of a team that is going to be really untouchable, really untouchable. And they'll have their hiccups. There's no doubt about it. You know, you look back last year between the Cup and Champions League, it was a bad 8 or 9 days. But this is a team that, if somebody said to me, I've got them tipped for 3 of 4 available trophies, I'd be like, I could see it.
Mm.
They certainly have the depth of the squad. And for all those people out there saying Florian Wirtz isn't that good, you're out of your mind. It's a whole different element now. He's not the man. He's a part of the collective. And it's going to be interesting to see how Ekitike and Alexander Isak battle it out for the starting position, because it's going to be about performance and training. It's going to be performance between the white lines. And Miola was saying to me today, well, how does he keep him happy? I don't think he has to keep him happy.
No.
I really don't. I think the strength of the leadership in that locker room is so much bigger than one individual player, that anybody who gets stepped out of line or tries to step out of line is going to get hooked back in really, really quickly, or they'll be completely pushed out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ekitike's finishing ability, Isak looks as quite a player. And by the way, I got it for Gravenberch.
Yeah,
The technical ability on that
Yeah.
ball is so extraordinarily high, because it's a whipped ball from Mo Salah. So the ball's actually going away from you as you're trying to hit the ball back across your body, far post, side net. He didn't hook it, he smacked it. So I just think about the physicality and the way his weight shift was, center of balance. Outrageous to think about it. It's another thing to actually pull it off. They're a really fun team to watch. I hate saying that as a Man United fan, but as a football fan in general, as a pundit, they are one of the most electrifying teams to watch, and they're not even playing that great right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think on that point, like we talk a lot about the great Alex Ferguson and what made him so dominant, and what it was continuing to build when they were the best and continuing to rearm when they had the best team. And there's the infamous, Yap Stam and David Beckham moments in his time at Manchester United, and deciding, and Mark Hughes was done,
Yeah.
and bringing in Andy Cole or whatever.
Keno.
For a 90s reference. Yeah, and Paul Ince, another one. I
Yeah.
mean, Paul Parker, our friend, even when they won the league and were the best, he would sort of make changes. And I think this season for Liverpool might well be almost like what we put in a textbook for rearming when you are at your strongest.
Yeah.
And like people might say Florian Wirtz isn't going to do it in England. That might well come to fruition. I think if they didn't sign Florian Wirtz, they'd still have the strongest team in the country, strongest squad in the country. If he comes good, which I agree with you, I think he will. As the season goes on, it'll be absolutely pivotal. Kevin De Bruyne sort of levels, which is as high as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. But I think that they, without him, they could do it. And you think about Gravenberch, you mentioned the form of Szoboszlai and Ekitike are the top 3 world-class performers so far. We've barely seen the best of Salah. Van Dijk has not been amazing so far. Kirkez is just getting into his groove. Alisson hasn't really been tested so far yet. McAllister hasn't really stepped up yet to as good as he could be. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who's going to beat them, and how are they going to beat them? And the stumble of last year was when they were already champions, and this squad is substantially better than the last squad. I can just see them winning every single game in every single competition all the way through. And
by the way, 3 of their 5 summer signings were on the bench.
$200 million in 2 players on the bench.
Yeah.
Didn't really need him.
Yeah.
Didn't need him.
Yeah. I mean, Frimpong sitting on the bench as well to add to that list. I mean, Kirkez and Ekitike, the only players start. I mean, again, so much credit to them, because from the infrastructure and the stadium expansion twice to the new training facility to being so bold and under pressure about spend and net spend and wages and salary and all bonus structure, all that, to come out swinging the way they did this summer is nobody, maybe the outside back conversation, right? Trent leaves, they at least get 10 million for him for his participation in the FIFA Club World Cup. Andy Robertson is getting longer in the tooth. So you bring in Kirkez, who's widely considered one of the best left backs, younger left backs in the league. Yeah, I mean, this is such a significant upgrade. It's been wild to watch in real time.
Listen, I had a load of other topics I wanted to cover with you today, but I think that's probably enough for today's show. But I might save. I'll say this now so I can remember it. But we might do this Marcus Rashford thing next week, depending on how it goes. Because we did a bit of Man U today.
You left it
so
late, huh? You left it late. The Rashford story.
Yeah, typical Rashford. Am I right?
Just a couple minutes.
I'll be on the bench for the next podcast, I think, after that. So we might do that another time. I think it's quite an interesting one. And there was that great Anton Stark free kick I wanted to ask you about. Plus, it is funny that LAFC keep thrashing Real Salt Lake. Let's hope they have a
by the way,
again.
last 14 goals that LAFC has scored, Denny Mwanga has scored 8. Son Heung-min has scored 6.
Yeah, scary. They're going to be a good bet. They're going to be a very, very, very good bet. Yeah. Scary. Son looks really good. But that's it for this week. Listen, if you are subscribed to us on Apple, subscribe on Spotify. If you're subscribed on Spotify, subscribe on Apple. If you have another podcast platform, tell me what it is, because I've never heard of it, but it sounds great. And we're delighted you've subscribed to us there. You can also watch the entirety of Week in the Tackle on YouTube. So please do that. Subscribe so you get this and similar content in your YouTube algorithm as well, to make sure you're getting top quality football analysis in your YouTube feed. That's Brian Dunseth. I'm Tom Rennie. The podcast is Week in the Tackle. Tim Horsey produced it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.